Ongoing tariffs are leaving no industry untouched, and that includes the chewing gum industry. Small business owners are the ones bearing the brunt of this impact, and one business owner is Nathan Mull. He's the founder and CEO of Nathan & Sons Underbrush, a natural and re-mineralizing chewing gum company. Nathan, great to have you on our program. Thanks for coming on and chatting about this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, your products are all U.S. made, but that doesn't necessarily shield a company from larger scale trade war, does it? I mean, how is the back and forth on tariffs and the uncertainty affecting your company's operations?
No, it doesn't. I mean, even though we're manufacturing our product in America, we still get a lot of things from China. You know, the machinery, there's almost no company here or manufacturing company that will make specialized chewing gum machinery. Packaging has been an ongoing thing. I've tried to source it here. It's been an issue, and in fact, since this trade war started, I'm still waiting on quotes from, in February.
Wow, that's interesting. What about the 90-day semi-truce between the U.S. and China? Has that helped at all? Because it's interesting that new information out today, or this week, shows that consumer confidence is improving. But last month, there's an argument out there that people are just buying ahead, trying to get ahead of the punishing tariffs. Are you seeing that?
I think that is definitely a possibility and probably playing into it, but I would say overall the pauses helped us tremendously. We had some shipments that we thought were going to be high risk. Those happened to make it just as that was happening, and the shipments we're now waiting for, I'm confident that those will be here before the pause is over. So I think we're one of the lucky ones in that scenario.
Tell me about your anxiety level over the next 3 months. I mean, we really have to hope that this proceeds in a very controlled fashion, that you don't see these dramatic swings. What's your big concern once the 90-day pause runs out?
Well, it's definitely on my mind just as much as it's been on it for the last couple of months. We've had to kind of tread lightly and cautiously moving forward. I would say anxiety levels, probably in the higher tiers, as I'm sure with many other business owners that have products that they import or materials that they import.
Tell me a bit about your chewing gum and the kind of changes the business has had to make when it comes to source materials. You were talking about trying to get packaging, equipment, things like that. But what other source materials and staffing expansion plans, how are they being affected?
Sometimes the best thing you can do is nothing, and that's been kind of my strategy throughout this whole thing is, move forward and whatever happens, and we'll kind of address it when it does. But we've notified staff that, depending on how these tariffs go, there may be some changes, on the horizon. We initially planned for maybe a 20% tariff, up to over 145%. That was a little shocking, so we felt it was the right thing to do to give everyone fair notice that things could get turbulent and to plan for that.
And tell me a bit about your chewing gum. We're seeing a lot of natural products here on the screen. Walk me through that, the way it's made, and just how you've been affected.
So our chewing gum is much different than the synthetic stuff that you'll find in the stores. We go back to using natural tree saps, like spruce and mastic. Spruce was actually the first chewing gum in America. Sometime around the early 1900s, everything was switched over to a synthetic plastic and rubber base. And so we're just trying to get back to those beneficial saps and more natural, holistic ingredients. And we've seen that we're not the only one that wants it.
Yeah, and I guess those natural items are in the U.S. That makes it easier for you. Talk to me a bit about your goals, what you're hoping to accomplish for this business year. You said that doing nothing may be the best thing right now, but certainly everybody has success on their mind. How do you believe you've been affected by the trade issues?
Well, our main thing is building out our manufacturing facility, and that was probably the number one thing that would be affected by the tariffs. A lot of the machinery that we're bringing in, all of that is, Chinese made. And so we can't say no to those shipments. We've already paid for them, and if we end up paying a tariff on it, we're going to have to do it. We're just going to have to find other ways, on the back end or in the future to kind of make it make sense.
By other things, you're going to have to pass on the cost to the consumer?
It's definitely in the realm of possibilities. We'll try to eat whatever we can, but at the end of the day, it's either that or survival or die.
If you could sit down and talk with members of the White House, working in the White House, what would you want to tell them right now?
I would say, if the focus is to bring manufacturing back to the US, I'm 100% for that. It's not by accident that I'm doing this here in our country, but to not forget about the small businesses and make sure that we clear a path to make that a possibility. But do what you have to do. I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, and I have faith that things will work out in the end, and this will make a lot more sense in hindsight.